The night Jake Sullivan's car broke down in the pouring rain outside Eliza Montgomery's estate would change both their lives forever. What started as a simple act of kindness, offering shelter to a struggling single father and his daughter, would spiral into a scandal that threatened Eliza's position as CEO of Montgomery Industries and Jake's custody of 6-year-old Lily. But neither of them could have predicted the reaction of Richard Montgomery when he discovered a strange man had spent the night in his daughter's home. If you've ever believed that one moment can alter your entire destiny, this story will confirm that truth. Like, subscribe, and join me on this emotional journey about two broken people who found healing in the most unexpected circumstances. Jake Sullivan stared at the dashboard of his ancient Honda Civic as the engine sputtered and died. The rain hammered against the windshield, creating a deafening roar that almost drowned out his daughter's soft whimpers from the back seat. "Daddy, are we going to be okay?" 6-year-old Lily clutched her worn teddy bear tighter, her wide blue eyes, so much like her mother's, filled with worry. "Of course we are, sweetheart." Jake forced a smile, though panic was rising in his chest. They were miles from home, on a winding country road lined with massive estates belonging to people who probably spent more on a single dinner than he made in a month. His phone showed no service, and the storm was only getting worse. He'd taken this shortcut after picking Lily up from her after-school program, hoping to save time. Now they were stranded, and night was falling fast. The custody hearing was in 2 days, and Jake couldn't afford any mistakes. Not when his ex-mother-in-law was determined to prove him an unfit parent after Sarah's death 18 months ago. Lightning flashed, illuminating a grand iron gate about 50 yards ahead. Beyond it stood an imposing Georgian mansion with lights glowing warmly from several windows. "Stay here, Lilybug. I'm going to see if someone can help us." Jake zipped up his jacket and stepped out into the downpour. By the time he reached the intercom at the gate, he was drenched. He pressed the button, expecting to be ignored or turned away. "Hello?" A woman's voice, clear and authoritative, came through the speaker. "I'm so sorry to bother you," Jake said, water dripping from his hair into his eyes. "My car broke down, and I have my daughter with me. Could I possibly use your phone to call a tow truck?" There was a pause, and Jake was certain he'd be refused. Then the gate began to swing open. "Drive up to the house," the voice instructed. "I can't, the car won't start." Another pause. "Wait there." 5 minutes later, headlights cut through the rain as a sleek black SUV approached. It stopped beside him, and the driver's window lowered to reveal a woman with striking features, high cheekbones, intelligent green eyes, and dark hair pulled back in a severe bun. She wore a tailored blazer despite the late hour, as if she'd just stepped out of a board meeting. "Get in," she said, her expression unreadable. "Both of you." Inside Eliza Montgomery's warm kitchen, Lily sat at the marble island, happily devouring hot chocolate and cookies while Jake made calls to towing services. His shoulders slumped as he ended the 5th call. "No luck?" Eliza asked, setting down her laptop. Jake shook his head. "The storms caused accidents all over the county. No one can come until morning at the earliest." Eliza studied him for a moment. At 35, she was the youngest CEO in her family's century-old company's history. She'd learned to read people quickly, to assess threats and opportunities in an instant. The man before her, tall, with tired eyes and worn jeans, didn't register as a threat. Just a father trying his best. "You'll stay here tonight," she said, the decision made. "I have plenty of guest rooms." Jake's pride wanted to refuse, but one look at Lily's exhausted face made the choice for him. "Thank you. That's incredibly kind." "It's practical," Eliza corrected, though something in her expression softened. "The storm's only getting worse." Later, after showing them to adjacent guest rooms with adjoining bathrooms stocked with everything they might need, Eliza returned to her home office. But instead of focusing on quarterly reports, she found herself thinking about the single father down the hall. There was something about his quiet dignity, the gentle way he spoke to his daughter, that had pierced through the armor she'd built around herself. Jake tucked Lily into the enormous four-poster bed, which made his daughter look even tinier than usual. "This is like a princess bed," Lily whispered, her eyes wide with wonder. "You are a princess," Jake said, kissing her forehead. "My little princess. Is the lady a queen? She lives in a castle." Jake smiled. "Not a queen. I think she's more like a knight. Strong and brave." "I like her," Lily declared, snuggling deeper under the luxurious duvet. "She doesn't smile much, but her eyes are kind." Out of the mouths of babes, Jake thought. He hadn't noticed Eliza's eyes beyond their striking color, but Lily had always been perceptive. "Get some sleep, sweetheart. Tomorrow we'll figure everything out." But everything became more complicated at precisely 7:42 the next morning, when Richard Montgomery, founder and chairman of Montgomery Industries, arrived unannounced at his daughter's home for their monthly breakfast meeting, a tradition he'd insisted on continuing even after Eliza had taken over as CEO 3 years ago. Richard Montgomery had built his empire from nothing, clawing his way up from poverty through sheer determination and ruthless business acumen. At 72, he remained a formidable presence, tall, silver-haired, with piercing eyes that had made countless business rivals wither. He still kept an office at headquarters and made no secret of his opinion that his daughter's more progressive approach to leadership was misguided. He used his key to enter through the side door, as he always did, calling out, "Eliza. I brought those pastries from Bellini's you pretend not to like." The sight that greeted him in the kitchen stopped him cold. A strange man in borrowed pajamas was helping a small child reach the orange juice in the refrigerator. The man turned, startled, a carton of juice in his hand. "Good morning," Jake said awkwardly. "You must be Eliza's father." Richard's face darkened. "Who the hell are you, and what are you doing in my daughter's house?" The thunderous voice brought Eliza rushing into the kitchen, still fastening an earring. "Dad! I wasn't expecting you until 8. "Clearly," Richard said coldly, his eyes never leaving Jake. "Would you care to explain why there's a man and child making themselves at home in your kitchen?" Before Eliza could answer, Lily piped up. "Our car broke down in the rain. The nice lady let us stay because we were all wet and cold." Richard's expression didn't soften. "Eliza, a word. Now." In the study, Richard closed the door with controlled precision that signaled his fury more clearly than a slam would have. "Have you lost your mind?" he demanded. "Letting strangers into your home? Do you have any idea who that man could be?" "His name is Jake Sullivan," Eliza said calmly. "His car broke down outside our gate during the storm. He has a 6-year-old daughter. What would you have had me do? Leave them in the rain? Call them a taxi? Call them a hotel? There are a dozen solutions that don't involve inviting unknown men to spend the night in your home." "Dad, it's not what you're implying. They stayed in the guest wing. I was being a decent human being." Richard scoffed. "Decency is a luxury for people who don't have responsibilities. You're the CEO of a company with 10,000 employees. Your reputation affects stock prices, client confidence." "I'm well aware of my responsibilities," Eliza cut in, her voice turning to ice. "I'm also aware that I'm 35 years old and don't need your approval for how I conduct my personal life. This isn't about approval. It's about judgment. First the changes to the parental leave policy, then refusing the Westlake merger, and now this? The board is already questioning whether you have the necessary instincts for this position." Eliza felt the familiar sting of her father's disappointment, but kept her expression neutral. "The board approved those changes because they were the right decisions for the company's future. And this," she gestured toward the kitchen, "has nothing to do with Montgomery Industries." "Everything you do reflects on the company," Richard insisted. "Everything." Meanwhile, in the kitchen, Jake was hurriedly helping Lily finish her breakfast, acutely aware they had walked into a family drama they had no part in. "We should go, Lily-bug," he whispered. "Let's get our things." "But Daddy, we haven't thanked the nice lady properly." "We'll leave her a note," Jake promised, already calculating how much a tow truck and repairs would cost, and whether he could afford to miss another day of work at the construction site. They were almost to the front door, Jake carrying their small overnight bag, when Eliza emerged from the study, her face composed but her eyes stormy. "You're leaving?" she asked, and Jake couldn't tell if she was relieved or disappointed. "Yes, I've called a tow service. They can be here in an hour." He extended his hand. "Thank you for your kindness, Ms. Montgomery. We won't forget it." Eliza shook his hand, noticing calluses that spoke of physical labor. "It was no trouble." Lily broke away from her father and wrapped her arms around Eliza's legs. "Thank you for the princess bed and the cookies." Something in Eliza's expression cracked, and she knelt to the child's level. "You're very welcome, Lily. You were a perfect guest." Richard appeared in the hallway, watching the scene with narrowed eyes. Jake nodded respectfully in his direction, then gently guided Lily toward the door. "Wait," Eliza said suddenly. "The tow service will take hours in this weather, and they'll charge you a fortune. Let me drive you home." "That's not necessary," Jake began. "I insist," Eliza said, with a glance toward her father that made it clear this was partly an act of defiance. Richard's jaw tightened. "Eliza, we have matters to discuss before your 9:30 meeting." "They can wait," she replied, already reaching for her car keys. Family emergency. The drive to Jake's modest apartment in the working-class part of town was mostly silent, with only Lily's occasional comments breaking the tension. Eliza navigated the roads with the same precision she applied to everything, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. "I'm sorry about my father," she finally said as they approached Jake's neighborhood. "He can be difficult." Jake looked out at the rain-slicked streets. "He's protective." "I understand that." "He's controlling," Eliza corrected. "There's a difference." "Still, I apologize for causing problems between you." Eliza shook her head. "Those problems existed long before you came along." She pulled up in front of the apartment building, studying the peeling paint and sagging steps with an unreadable expression. Jake cleared his throat. "Thank you again. For everything." "It was nothing," Eliza said automatically. "No," Jake met her eyes. "It wasn't nothing. Not to us." Something passed between them then, a moment of recognition, perhaps, or understanding. Then Lily unbuckled her seatbelt and the spell was broken. "Goodbye, night lady," she called cheerfully. Eliza blinked. "Night lady?" Jake smiled sheepishly. "She decided you're not a queen, but a knight. Strong and brave." For the first time since they'd met, Eliza Montgomery smiled, a real smile that transformed her face and reached her eyes. "I think that's the nicest thing anyone said about me in years." As Jake and Lily climbed the stairs to their apartment, Jake couldn't shake the feeling that something significant had just happened, though he couldn't have explained what. He had more immediate concerns: the custody hearing, his dwindling savings, the car repairs he couldn't afford. He had no way of knowing that Eliza sat in her car for a long time after they disappeared inside, staring at the building and thinking about knights and princesses and single fathers with kind eyes and gentle hands. And neither of them could have predicted that Richard Montgomery was already making phone calls, determined to find out everything there was to know about Jake Sullivan, and how to ensure he never came near his daughter again. The next morning, Jake was at work on a construction site when his phone rang. The caller ID showed his lawyer's number, and his stomach dropped. The custody hearing wasn't until tomorrow. "Jake, we have a problem," Martin Greenberg said without preamble. "Evelyn's lawyer just submitted new evidence. They're claiming you spent the night at a woman's house with Lily present." Jake's blood ran cold. "What?" How could they possibly know about that? So it's true? Martin sounded disappointed. Jake, you know how Evelyn's been trying to paint you as irresponsible. This plays right into her hands. My car broke down in the storm. The woman, Eliza, she was just being kind. Nothing happened. It doesn't matter what happened. It matters how it looks to the judge. A single father spending the night at a strange woman's house with his young daughter? Evelyn's lawyer will spin this as evidence of poor judgment. Jake leaned against a wall, suddenly dizzy. This can't be happening. How did they even find out? I don't know, but they have photographs of you leaving the house the next morning. The woman is identified as Eliza Montgomery, CEO of Montgomery Industries. Jake closed his eyes. Richard Montgomery. It had to be. But why would a powerful businessman go out of his way to hurt a nobody like him? Jake, I need to know, is there anything else I should be aware of? Any other incidents that could be misconstrued? No, nothing. I've been careful. You know how much Lily means to me. Martin sighed. I know. Look, I'll do my best tomorrow, but you need to be prepared. This doesn't look good. After hanging up, Jake stood motionless, oblivious to the construction noise around him. Since Sarah's death, he'd rebuilt his life around Lily, working double shifts, creating a stable home, learning to braid hair and bake birthday cakes. The thought of losing her to Sarah's mother, a woman who had barely been involved in Lily's life until she decided Jake wasn't good enough, was unbearable. Across town, Eliza was in the middle of a board meeting when her assistant slipped her a note. Your father requests your immediate presence in his office. Eliza frowned but excused herself. In Richard's corner office with its panoramic views of the city, she found him standing at the window, hands clasped behind his back. You wanted to see me? Richard turned, his expression grave. I've learned some interesting things about your house guest. Eliza crossed her arms. I didn't realize you were investigating him. Someone needed to. Jake Sullivan, 34. Widower. Works construction. Currently involved in a custody battle with his late wife's mother. Richard tossed a folder onto his desk. The hearing is tomorrow. And this concerns us how? It concerns you because your name is about to be dragged into a messy family court case. The grandmother's lawyer has evidence he spent the night at your house. Eliza felt a chill. That's absurd. His car broke down. I was being a decent human being. The court won't see it that way. They'll see a man with questionable judgment, exposing his child to potentially inappropriate situations. There was nothing inappropriate about it. Perception is reality, Eliza. You know that. Richard sat behind his desk. I've taken steps to contain the damage. Eliza narrowed her eyes. What kind of steps? I've had our legal team contact the grandmother's lawyer. We've made it clear that Montgomery Industries will consider any mention of your name in court as defamation, and will respond accordingly. You did what? Eliza's voice was dangerously quiet. I protected you. And the company. By threatening a grandmother who's trying to get custody of her granddaughter? Richard waved a dismissive hand. The woman is using this incident as ammunition. I simply removed that weapon from her arsenal. Did it occur to you that your actions might hurt an innocent child? That little girl needs her father. That's not our concern. It is my concern. Eliza rarely raised her voice, but now it echoed off the glass walls. You had no right to interfere. I had every right. This company is not the only thing that matters. Eliza cut him off. There are actual people involved here, Dad. A man who's trying.